My first guest ready as well. He is Steve Gallant. He is the brave man who confronted that terrorist back in 2019. That's the one that we almost saw unfolding before our very eyes here at Talk. He has had, shall we say, an interesting life. He was a convicted murderer. He was just coming towards the end of his sentence. He was on a sort of day release. He came down to town and he ended up very, very bravely confronting the Muslim terrorist who brought horror to London Bridge. He is Steve Gallant. So let's talk to Steve first. Steve, welcome to the show.
Good day.
Once again, I want to praise you for your great courage on that day back in 2019. Quickly tell us what happened. You were the one who grabs hold of that whalebone sort of weapon and tackled that terrorist, and you confronted him and bundled him to the ground. Just remind us what happened, Steve.
Yeah, so it was actually my first day out of prison in 14 and a half years, and I was invited to Fishmongers Hall that day, and as the event there unfolded, we heard screams. And I reacted to that. I ran downstairs to see what was happening. And Usman Khan, the terrorist, was stood there with two big knives in his hands. And sadly, there was two ladies laid on the floor who had been critically injured. One of them later died. But I engaged in a fight with Usman Khan. Somebody handed me a narwhal tusk. That was on one of the walls. I took Usman Khan on. Eventually, I chased him out of the building. Others joined in too, and eventually I took him down on London Bridge, where the police turned up a short while later and shot him dead.
And it was a turning point in your life. Let's, let's not sugarcoat what you did. You were involved in a shocking murder, but your prison sentence and what happened on London Bridge, I think, was a big turning point for you. You've since turned your life around. You've got a degree. You've taught yourself to read and write. You've now got a degree in business studies. You wrote a book about your experience, your incredible life. So respect to you for that. Let me ask you, you went to university, Oxford Brookes University. So respect to you for turning your life around, Steve. Now, as someone, you're not so much a victim of terrorism, but you know about the horror of terrorism. You saw what that maniac was doing that day back in 2019. What do you think of the fact that in Birmingham they are going to field a convicted terrorist, a man who did time in the Yemen for his part in a bomb plot to kill and maim innocent victims, the like of what you saw? What do you think of that idea to put a guy like that in as a councillor in a major city in Britain?
Well, first of all, I was a victim of that attack, even though I prevented further loss of life, because I was impacted by that through trauma, and I lost people who I knew. But so I have a quite broad perspective on what it's like to be a victim of terrorist attacks. So I think, Mr. Butt himself, this is somebody who went over to Yemen to plotted an attack against the British consulate over there. And one can only imagine the sort of devastation that he and his chums would have caused had they succeeded in that attack. And he wasn't, rehabilitation is important because I've engaged in that rehabilitation process myself, and I've done very well out of it. And, I'm largely accepted back into society. But he wasn't a young kid when he did this. He was 33 years old. And it wasn't that long ago. But again, to think that somebody can then potentially do all these things and then come to Britain and then be a potential candidate for somebody who's going to represent all these people in a liberal democracy, I think it's a big slap in the face, to be honest, to his potential victims and whoever else he may get to represent if he succeeds in getting elected.
Yeah, because the guy you killed, you thought that he'd done the dirty with your girlfriend. So you had, I'm not in any way condoning or excusing it, but this is what most murders, most attacks of violence are about. There's a reason. And it's someone you know, and you want to get revenge. As I say, no one's condoning that, but you had a reason. What Shahid Butt did, and this is what terrorists do, is he plotted to kill innocent people that he didn't know for political reasons. And I think that takes murder or potential murder to a new level. And that's why I think it's great that someone like you can get a second chance and turn your life around. I'm not sure that someone who once plotted to kill people he didn't know for political reasons should be given a second chance, certainly should not be representing an area of Birmingham.
Well, I mean, there's a higher level of trust that is, that you should require if you want to represent people. I mean, surely in this constituency there will be British people. Yeah, of course, in Britain there'll be Jewish people, perhaps, and those people will want to be able to go to whoever's representing them to ask them for their support. And how can people do that in a trustful way when you have when somebody has plotted such an attack as he has?
Yeah. Well, listen, stick around, Steve. Thanks very much for that. Let's go over to my next guest, Travis Frain, now OBE. Travis, you, I say, survived the Westminster Bridge attack. Again, another Muslim maniac who drove that vehicle towards the House of Parliament, the Houses of Parliament. You were on a day off from university. You come down to the big city with your mates, walking across Westminster Bridge. Next thing you knew, you're up in the air. You've been and you broke sort of nearly, you broke most of the bones in your body. Therefore, you seriously are a victim of terrorism. First of all, just talk us through what happened.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on the programme. I mean, breaking all the bones in my body is a little bit perhaps over the top, but I did receive some serious injuries. I broke my left leg in a couple of places, tore a ligament, and broke several of the bones on my hand and my fingers. But I was, incredibly lucky not only to survive, but to be able to make a full recovery. And that's not something that we could say for all the people who were in that attack. 5 people, innocent people, were killed, and over 50 were injured, and many of them have lifelong injuries, that have left them paralyzed or in a wheelchair. So it's important we remember the impact of these attacks.
So my question to you is, as a serious victim, someone who saw what terrorism can do, I think we've come to a pretty low point where we are proposing, or people are proposing, to put field as a candidate in Birmingham to become a councillor, a guy called Shahid Butt, who is a convicted terrorist who plotted to bomb, kill and maim innocent victims. Now, as I said to Steve just now, I'm all for giving people a second chance, people turning their lives around, but there are crimes for which I think we should always treat people with suspicion, and terrorists are one of those crimes. Your thoughts?
Well, it's a pretty remarkable state of affairs that we find ourselves in. I mean, there's a couple of thoughts here I'd like to add. Number one of which is that of the years following, I've done a lot of work in the sort of counter-terrorism space and indeed across the counter-extremism world, and I've done work with people who, used to be perpetrators of violence. People in Northern Ireland, people in other parts of the world have come into contact with and interacted with these people. And of course, they're all, we'll say, interesting individuals and all have separate involvements. But I think one thing that often combines many of those people that I have had interactions with is the fact that they hold up their hands and they have an element of guilt or admission for what they've done or what they attempted to do. And that's something that I think is lacking severely here with Shahid Butt's case. I mean, when we look at this, there appears to be a little bit of doublethink going on. I think they need to perhaps get their sort of story straight before they run for election. On the one hand, as we saw in the earlier clip you put on, they claim that he was innocent and that this was a kangaroo court and therefore it was wrong that he was convicted of terrorism. And yet I've seen in some of the reports on this that he claims that he has spent the years following working in counter-terrorism and working to prevent other people from being radicalized. So which one is it? That for me is perhaps the even bigger concern here. Less so that someone has that background and is running for council, but more actually that we don't truly know what the story is.
I'll tell you what's interesting. I was talking to my 2 Muslim friends yesterday, the people organising this sort of assault on more than 60 areas of Birmingham to get Muslim councillors on them. They were sort of, as Muslims, they were talking about a Muslim country, Yemen, as if it's some sort of cowboy. Oh, you can't trust that lot, you know, oh, that place, oh, that kind of conviction doesn't count in the Yemen. I thought that was a bit odd because that is a serious Muslim country, and I don't know why these Muslim men were putting it down. I mean, actually, the Middle Eastern countries take terrorism almost more seriously than we do. So I thought they were wrong with that. But yes, Travis, this is beyond the pale, isn't it? To have a convicted terrorist proposed as a candidate to become a councillor in Britain's second city. I think that we have to draw the line at this, don't you think?
I think you're right, and I think, you know, there is a particular concern to be had that we have to remember a lot of counter-extremism services are run through local councils, and in an area like Birmingham or any other county for that matter, someone who is elected to council will have a certain element of oversight over those services, and this is not the type of person that I would like to see with oversight for those services, such as PREVENT and other local counter-terrorism measures.
Well, listen, Travis, thank you so much for talking to us, and I'm really glad that you've recovered and your life is going so well. And Travis Frain, OBE, for God's sake, and Steve Gallant, same deal for you. Thank you so much. Good to talk to you.